Alright, good morning everybody. Today's date is the 18th of September 2021. I believe it's Saturday, and my name is Leslie Williams, and I live in San Diego, California. And since my phones only allow me to, it's either the phones or the type of memory cards that I'm putting in the phones, only seem to only allow me to make videos that are 33 minutes and 9 seconds long. Before beginning a new one pertaining to what appears on the SD card. Hold on. Oh, sorry about that. I'm gonna have to start trying to condense my dialogue within the videos while still trying to get as much information as I can pertaining to each subject matter that I try to expose within each video. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fly right into the purpose of this video. Now, gang stalking crimes are widely, massively reported to be involved in non-consensual human experimentation projects, but they're also involved in creating what is known as neuroprogramming for what is called mind pattern programming. There is massive non-consensual human experimentation projects occurring in gang stalking crimes, but at the same time, many of the educated knowledge that these criminally insane wild animals have been able to ascertain from prior human experimentation is being put into application. Now, so you can consider this to be a two-part video series, and if you're following me on my YouTube channel, and no matter what day you that you begin to follow me on it, you're going to probably see some videos within my YouTube channel concerning separate video series that have not been concluded. Well, you need to understand something. So much is going on in my life that is being intentionally affected upon my life on a daily basis, non-stop every day, literally non-stop every day, to where it is compromising my schedule on a massive, massive, massive scale. It is almost undescribable. So as a result of each day's schedule being compromised, it's causing my video series videos to be completely interrupted. I mean, I don't even have time anymore to even title my videos. So I want you to know that sometimes you might have to wait for video series videos to be for them to be continued or finished. Please just stay with this channel. You need to know anything that you don't see being completed pertaining to video series videos is because the perpetrators are literally massively forcing this crime up on my life every day in multiple different ways, and much of it is all this whole entire crime is covertly managed, but many of the things that they are doing, including intentionally affecting my health, a lot of it is being remotely perpetrated. So I'm just going to leave that statement there and segue on into what compelled me to make this video. Gang stalking crimes have many different neural weaponry, which is basically what is termed and called by thousands of victims who are online exposing this crime. Hold on. Oh, excuse me, please. And the different uses of this neural weaponry are all sadistic. So I'm going to try to explain concerning what's being reported. When we look at how the mind processes information, a lot of times, in fact, pretty much all animals rely on their memory in order to take the context of what is in a memory and incorporate it within our current day deliberations pertaining to any subject matter that memory reference may be reference to. If you're having a current thought and that thought compels you or motivates you or nudges you to access your memory bank because you might have relevant information within a specific memory set that is related to the current thought process, then the brain automatically goes into your memory Rolodex and tries to retrieve the information related to that memory reference so that it can be incorporated within the current thought process. So I'll give you a fast example. Say if you're out with your husband or your wife, whatever, and you're shopping and you've been shopping all day, and but it's getting to be about 4 p.m. and you're tired. You just kind of want to go home and relax. You don't really want to go home and cook for your husband and 2 or 3 kids. You don't even want to go home and cook for yourself. Hold on. So, I think we all can, I try to use metaphorical examples that we all can relate to. So that way you can say, okay, I can definitely identify with that. Or like when you get off work, and say if you ended up working overtime on a specific day, you don't really feel like going home and cooking. So you'll just throw something in the microwave. We can all identify with that. And that's why I try to use metaphorical examples that we can all identify with. So, and that's even another great example. Say if you work at a grocery store and your boss asks you to work an extra 5 hours and you've already worked 8, that's 12, 13 hours you're working. So when you go home, your mind and body is going to be telling you, your mind and body itself on its own is going to literally be telling you that you're exhausted. Your physical body is literally going to know, your unconscious mind and your conscious mind is going to immediately nudge you, force you to notice how tired you are, because that's literally part of the innate functions of the mind and body, is to nudge you to rest when your body is feeling overwhelmed. And so when you work 12 hours or even 11 hours and you're tired, maybe you didn't sleep well the night before and you're tired, your body's going to start signaling to you that you're tired, that you don't really feel like doing much. And so what your mind is also going to tell you, though, is that you're hungry. So by the time you get home or on your way home or both, your mind is going to start saying, okay, I really don't feel like cooking anything, major. So what do I have in the refrigerator that I can just pop in the microwave? So as you're thinking this thought about being tired and you're on your way home, your brain is even saying to you, okay, God, it's going to take me an hour to get home. All I want to do is get home and rest. And then your brain is also telling you that you're hungry, or that you're going to be hungry by the time you get home. So your mind is juggling this connected information and forcing the brain to process it in a very short time period, seemingly all at once. So then your mind starts to look for solutions pertaining to what can I do to eat in order so that when I go home, I don't have to engage in a lot of work. Okay, to make something to eat so I can just rest, and even rest while, it's cooking. So then your mind retrieves in your memory set what kind of food you got. Okay, I remember that I bought some frozen pizza and some frozen French fries. So your mind will push that into your conscious deliberations about what you're going to eat when you get home because you're tired. So this is all a thought process that your mind is engaging in, and then the mind is going into the memory sets of what you got to eat based on your current thought deliberations of how you feel. So that's a great example for you to be able to see how memory references are part of your current thought processes. Because your memory is there to serve you as a Rolodex of information. Whether it be a memory set of information you need to apply to current classroom work, okay, to current things that you need to retrieve in your mind as a result of something you're being told to do at work, okay, when it comes to relationships. Your husband says, okay, honey, it's time to go to bed. Do you remember, where's my clean pajamas at? Well, she's going to remember, what pajamas he's referring to. Did she just wash them? And so that's incorporated within the current thought process, because it's about a thought related to a subject matter. And then she's accessing her memory about where his favorite pajamas are that she just washed. So our memory sets are there to serve our thinking processes. Okay, and they are they play a huge role within our current thought processes. You go to a store and you've been shopping all day, and you say to yourself, "I'm going to go home. I don't feel like cooking. I'm in this certain neighborhood where the malls are at, or where is there a Mexican restaurant on my way home from the mall?" And so your brain starts retrieving that information based on history of where Mexican restaurants are at that you've eaten at before, when you've been in the neighborhood around your house, or maybe along your routes from work to your house. And so your brain will start saying, okay, I'm in the mood for Mexican. Where's there a Mexican restaurant at on my way home? And so this is how memory references can play a role in our current thought deliberations. Now, memory, a huge aspect of our memory recall is dedicated to your right and left temple. The visual memories, because you think to yourself, where is that Mexican restaurant at? What street was it on? I'm not quite sure if I remember what street it was on. And so the brain is nudging, your thinking process is nudging your memory, your visual memory, to come back to mind concerning the surrounding area of where that Mexican restaurant was at, pertaining to like intersections and crossroads. So, trust me, this is all being stated for a reason. So then the mind starts to hoggle back and forth between the thought process and the memory set, so that the memory set can assist in the completion of the thought process. Where exactly was the Mexican restaurant at? Okay, well then, if I can't really recall it in its entirety, then where were its surrounding streets at? Okay, and then the first memory set that was recalled about the Mexican restaurant was, I know it's on my way home to where I'm going. And I want to go to the Mexican restaurant because I'm tired of been shopping all day. So I think you have a real good immediate understanding concerning how relevant memory sets are and their related information. Now, why is this important in gang stalking crimes? Because a huge aspect of our memory recall has to do with our right and left temple. You can research all my statements. The right and left temple of your head, okay? And I'm sure you know where your temples are. They're right next to, they're on the side of the head, okay, right behind the eyes on the side of the head, okay, a little bit above the ears, but towards the side of the head, right up towards the beginning of your forehead, if you're going up from the sides of your head, directly next to your eyes, going towards the forehead. That's where your temples are. Now, the right and left cranium, that is at the very base of the bottom of the head, right before your head starts to meet the neck structure, neck, where your neck starts to form up towards the back of the head. The right at the base bottom of the back of the head, right before your neck starts, is called the right and left cranium. Okay? Now, the right and left cranium is responsible for visual processing. Let me backtrack for a second. I got a little bit mixed up there. The right and left temple has to do with auditory processing and memory. And since visual memories are part of memories, keep that in mind. Now, your right and left cranium is dedicated to visual processing. Okay? So, now, in gang stalking, these little satanic whores who are managing this, they know all this. It's no accident. The internet is stating that two of the main things that remote neural monitoring goes after is the auditorial system and the visual system. And when you look at all the additional technologies that are also integrated within the perpetration of the crimes that remote neural monitoring perpetrates, voice to skull, including voice to skull with voice morphing, what gang stalking crimes will do in order to create a bunch of havoc within the neuronal processes of the victim. This is video 1, okay, of this video series, and I guess I'll title it Remote Neural Monitoring and Memory Mapping, Memory Stimulation, Gang Stalking Crimes. So, at the beginning of video 2, that's what you'll hear at the beginning of the video, just in case I don't have time to title the video right away. That way, when you go into the account, you don't have to be searching for a lot of videos in order to find video 2. So, mind-hoggling in gang stalking crimes is where these 6 satanic whores, these criminally insane mass murdering animals, they got the capacity through remote neural monitoring to memory map a gang stalking victim. And this is part of the non-consensual human experimentation. It also plays a role in auditory and visual entrainment, and it also plays a role in mind-hoggling the victim concerning thought control and much more. There's a lot different things going on concerning what remote neural monitoring and memory mapping, memory stimulation, how it's integrated within current thought control, where they're trying to make the victim think they're having a current thought. based on voice to skull with voice morphine while visual memories are being stimulated. It's just a bunch of crazy, demonic, sadistic shit. And I can only expose so much in a 33-minute long video, but keep those statements in mind because they will eventually be incorporated within my visual video exposures, either related to this video series or upcoming videos that will be about related subject matters, where that testimony you can consider those testimonies to be integrated within your deliberations pertaining to this subject matter, because it's all connected. Okay, you just cannot believe how depraved these satanic. There is literally no language to describe the depth of depravity of these sick whores. They are so criminally insane. They literally make Jeffrey Dahmer and Hitler look like choir boys. Okay, they are depraved beyond mathematical summation. Okay, so anyways, hold on one second. So let me give you some information. Hold on. About how a gang stalking victim can be mind hoggled. Now, when you look at the word hoggle, that means you're basically, if you were to take a tennis ball and put it in your left hand, okay, if you were to look at the game of ping pong, well, let's go with the tennis ball metaphorical example. It's going to be extremely short. So let's say if you're got a tennis ball in your left hand, and your left hand is extended halfway out. You know, your arm is extended halfway out, and you got a tennis ball in it. And then you got your right arm that is extended halfway out, and it's empty. And if you were to take that tennis ball, and if you were to have both hands about, let's just say 2 feet apart, if you were to take that tennis ball in the left hand and throw it in the right, your right hand's going to catch it. And then if you were to throw it back to the left hand from the right, your left hand's going to catch it. And if you can just imagine you repeating that step consecutively 30 times, then what you're basically doing is you're taking a tennis ball and you're throwing it to the right hand, from the right hand back to the left hand back to the right hand back to the left, and non-stop, let's just say for 10 minutes. So you can take a look, you can use that tennis ball as a pictorial representation of neurons in the brain, going back and forth along a neurally entrained pathway. So a pathway, you can just look at it, you can use a visual representation as a neural pathway as a sidewalk. So if you got one person and he's sitting down on a sidewalk and he's doing the same thing with a tennis ball, except that he's not throwing it in his hand back and forth to each hand, he's just rolling it on the sidewalk back and forth from left hand to right, right hand to left, left hand to right, non-stop in the same way for 15 minutes. You can consider that tennis ball to be the neurons of the information that's being processed in the brain, the thoughts, including how these thoughts can have memory references directly attached to them, and then joggling it back and forth so that certain thoughts are being forced to be processed in the brain and along the neural pathway, and the pathway is the sidewalk. Okay, so you have a thought that's a tennis ball. It's going to the left, to the right hand. Okay, from the left hand to the right hand. That's the thought processing. The thought can have an attached memory reference. Then when it gets to the right hand, it goes back to the left hand. That means that same thought or something connected to that thought is now being forced to be processed. Okay, so that's what gang stalking is able to do to thought patterns, whether they be old thought patterns or artificially created thought patterns through voice to skull with voice morphine, that they might be able to attach a memory reference to. Okay, that they have found as a result of memory mapping and memory stimulation. So here's a great example of that. Let's just say if you got, let's just say your parents died when you were little, and so you were, as a result of that, you went and lived with your aunt and uncle. Now, you knew who your aunt and uncle were as a result of seeing them over time, you know, when your parents were alive, and visiting, you know, them visiting on the holidays, but you weren't really close to them. So, say your parents died at 10 and you were forced to live with your aunt and uncle, and you discovered over time that through experience with having a relationship with them, that they became abusive. Okay? Now, you should also understand that gang stalking crimes will infiltrate families, entire families. okay, with remote neural monitoring in order to neurally influence adults' behaviors against children, spouses against each other as well. So, because these people are nothing but sadistic, depraved animals. It's all they are. They're criminally insane psychopaths, and they are sadistic as shit. So, this technology can induce rage in people. It can influence their behaviors and decision making. It can cause husbands to beat their wives, wives to beat their husbands, parents to beat their children, children to beat. These people are sick beyond your mind's dimensions. Neural influencing connected to remote neural monitoring and the stimulation of brain states like rage, anger, hate, while that same target is experiencing thought manipulation about any aspect of a relationship that assist in order to trick the brain into believing, okay, you did this to me, I want you out of here, you're not leaving, so I'm going to remove you, and then that person who's being targeted will start physically attacking the person they perceive they want out of their house when they're just being remotely neurally influenced by remote neural monitoring and voice to skull with voice morphing. So meaning that this technology can literally neurally influence people to kill each other, beat each other, rape people. That's how bad this technology is. This is no lie, and you will discover this if you research what I state, and if you continue to stay with my videos. You'll see other information that will help you understand, and will lead you to additional information that you can research, so that information can complement your conclusions on what's being stated. So then you got this 10-year-old kid that's living with his aunt and uncle, and then all of a sudden the aunt starts being extremely abusive, even gaslighting the child, telling the child to do something, the child does it, and then the aunt turns around and says, well, I didn't tell you to do it that way, I told you to do it this way. And as a result of the child starting to learn that this aunt is abusive, every time the child is told to do something, and then the aunt says, well, I didn't tell you to do it that way, I told you to do it that way, what happens is that the child is going to, its brain is going to start defending itself, and so it's going to start looking for that information that child was originally told from the aunt, because the child is realizing that he's being abused, and so the brain automatically starts to defend itself by retrieving the information that it was originally told. Now, that's what gang stalking crimes will do. That's why a lot of gaslighting, okay, is occurring in gang stalking, because they're forcing the brain to break the brain down to the synaptic level by causing the brain to review something that's related to a subject matter, to an event, to a relationship, or any composition of all three. Okay, that's what gang stalking will do. It will tell you to do something, you do it, then it turns around and says, you did it the wrong way, that's not what I told you to do. Now, it's doing that because it's forcing the brain to reevaluate the information of what they were originally told to do. And the reason why that's occurring is because they're trying to force the brain into looking at information from both ends, back and forth, just like the tennis ball going from right to left, left back to right. And then so when the brain processes the information, what you were told to do at the beginning, A, B, C, D, E, to the end, and then when you were told that you weren't told that, the brain will go back and it will start to pick apart that original instruction. From E back to A, from B to C to D, from A to D to E, and it will start to process the information because the brain is being excited to believe that it's under some type of threat. So it hurries and goes and contemplates that information back, and it tries to do it in chunks. Well, gang stalking knows this, because when the brain is being reforced to reevaluate a situation, what is happening is that they're monitoring the neurotransmitters as they flow along the synaptic gap, and the neurotransmitters is what is holding the information. Okay? Now, a lot of the reasons why the victim will be gaslighted is so that when they're told to do one thing and then they're turned around and told that they weren't told that they were told something else, the brain is being forced to recontemplate contrasting information. Now, that's being done to force the brain to compare each set of information, so that the neurotransmitters, as they're processing the comparison, remote neural monitoring is looking at how the brain will process information that's contrasting and compare it in order to evaluate what was really said. Now, this contrast information is intentionally done in this way to force the brain to evaluate it, so that when the neurotransmitters process the contrasted information, they, as they see the brain doing this, they're comparing how the neurotransmitters decipher contrasting information. Excuse me. But you should also know, though, when this is happening, the brain is creating neural pathways that appear to be opposite in nature, because it's all still related to a relevant subject matter. If your aunt tells you how to vacuum a rug and you vacuum it in the way that she tells you to do it, and you see yourself vacuuming the rug in that way, that becomes a visual memory reference. Then when you get done vacuuming and she comes in and says, well, you did it the opposite way of the way I told you, and then she'll even show you how to do it the different way, then the brain is going to start evaluating both sets of how you're being told to do something, and then being lied about how you were told to do it. As a result, you were told to do it one way, and then she comes back and tells you that you were told to do it the other way, and she's showing you both ways. So you see, you got to understand there's also other abuse going on in this relationship, like physical abuse. So whenever a abusive partner approaches you and says you did something wrong, the brain is going to say, okay, am I going to be hit because I supposedly did this thing wrong when you actually didn't? But you see, that's the manipulation connected to this. It's the gaslighting, the mental gaslighting, where they're trying to fuel, gas, and ignite, light up, gaslighting, a response, a neural response, to force the brain into the reprocessing of what they were told and shown to do. And as a result of this information being contrasting, the brain is going back and forth like a fucking ping pong. Now, you got to remember, when you're told to do something while you're shown what to do, that's a visual memory set. Now, after this is done repeatedly to the same victim in the same way, it becomes a memory anchor because it's related to a same act. Being told how to vacuum a rug, okay, being shown how to do it, you do it, and then they come back in and said, no, I told you to do it this way and showed you to do it this way. So then when he's being told and shown a different way, even though that different way they're trying to claim was the original way, that's what causes the comparison. But yet, though, it's got now an original anchor concerning the type of act that's being done. It's related to vacuuming and so on. So the brain is being ping-pong back and forth, the ball being the neurotransmitters that's processing this opposing information, and the visual references of it, because as they were told each time what to do, they were being shown what to do. So it's got a visual memory reference. So they were told one way as they were shown one way. Then when they were told that was the wrong way, and then being shown how to do it again, presenting that as being the original way that they were supposed to be shown, even though it wasn't, the brain is going to look at that opposing visual information along with its dialogue, and it's going to process it. See, what you got to understand about abusive relationships, this is neural and mind manipulation in order to force the brain to make these thinking processes comparisons, so that the brain can be broken down to the synaptic level, because they know the brain is going to be excited to evaluate the information because the brain is defending itself. And the mind is defending itself because the mind knows what it was originally told. Gang stalking knows all this. So what they're forcing the brain to do is they're mind hoggling the memory, okay, and the information, by forcing the mind to remember one thing, okay, claiming that one thing they were told is a lie. Then the mind will go back and evaluate it. So the mind is being brought back to the original part of it. And then the mind is forced to evaluate the lie about how the person is saying this is how you were actually told to do it when it wasn't. So that's what's going on with gang stalking. Now, once these types of anchors are created, memory anchors and thought processes are anchored, remote neural monitoring is also memory mapping this information. And then will constantly stimulate it back into the neuronal processes of the victim, forcing the brain to constantly relive, okay, the attributes and dynamics of the situation. So the brain is being constantly taken back and forth. Your mom, your aunt was nice to you on this one day. She took you out to eat. You were laughing. You joked all day. 1 week later, she's abusing you and telling you she hates you. Okay? So these are two different types of episodic memories. Gang stalking will look at each one by memory mapping it and then forcing those stimulated memories along with the dialogue connected to them back into the mind, back to back, right next to each other. It's called mind hoggling. And then they just force the brain to go ping pong, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, intentionally showing the brain, intentionally created contrasting information. So then the brain starts getting jammed up and it creates interference signals. The brain starts screaming for help because the brain is being intentionally forced to process contrasting information. Happy, sad, okay? Happy, abuse, affection, hate, love, hate. This is what they're fucking doing to gang stalking victims on a daily fucking basis. A gang stalking victim can be forced to endure this 300 times a day. Okay? 300 times a day where they're being forced to process. Sorry, I'm exhaling a cigarette. Where they're being forced to process 150 memory reference sets, okay, to prior episodic memories of relationships that were good, and then 150 memory sets of abuse from that same person that they had the relationship with. While they're connected emotions, if you have a happy day with your aunt on Friday, you got happy emotions, happy visual memories of that event. Okay, and then on Friday she starts abusing you, and then you have sad and angry emotions. Well, they're also forcing the brain to process those emotions as each episodic memory is stimulated. It's forcing the brain to see all the composition of the memory, the visual memory. And while even simultaneously using voice to skull with voice morphing to make you think you're having a corresponding thought about the context of that memory reference. This is what gang stalking is doing to gang stalking victims. You need to know it. So you can experience this where your brain is literally forced to process every bit of it 300 times in one day. And then when you go to sleep, you can be forced to suffer what is known as a electronic synthetic dream, where you're seeing your own self-image being abused, where you're seeing people being hurt, animals being hurt, children being hurt. This is what gang stalking does. This is done to rewire the brain and to create also what is known as artificial nonlinear schizophrenic neural pathways. Research that to gang stalking, concerning how they're intentionally trying to create what is known as artificial schizophrenia. You need to know the mentality and the personality, okay, and the pathologies of the NSA, the CIA, the DOD, the DIA, the DHS, the FBI, and all these other whores that are massively reported to be the main implicated hosts of this satanic tech. Paybacks are bitch motherfuckers. You should also know this crime is reported to intentionally perpetrate the rape, gang rape, murder, and non-stop sadistic torture with electromagnetic weapons, direct energy weapons, and ultrasonic sound bone conduction, where the brain and body is being forced to experience non-stop torture every second of every minute of every hour of every day, including while you're sleeping. My name is Leslie Williams.